I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast. In the last couple episodes, we've talked about spiritual practices that you can do that help initiate yourself into magical practice. Hopefully, you're beginning to see through these last several podcasts that very similar to BDSM mastery and self mastery in general, uh, mastering magic is very much the same. So the works that you're doing to yourself to uh, become adept at BDSM and kink and learning different techniques and um, conditioning your body and pushing your own limits and setting goals in your relationship, all of these kinds of things that we have always stressed as somewhat character things or are very similar to the types of things that will make you successful in practicing sex magic and magic in general. And that's kind of what we've been trying to get at over these last or actually through this series is to we kind of gave a good introduction about magic and part of teaching you to practice magic and teaching you to self-initiate yourself is to tell you of these spiritual practices that you can do, but also to kind of show you how you've already kind of been on a spiritual BDSM path. A lot of people say that BDSM already is somewhat spiritual, just in and of itself. And you can kind of see that that is somewhat true as you have been progressing through your life in BDSM. You have, in a lot of ways, already been doing practices that are initiatory, the practices that have helped make you a more magical, a more spiritual being. So we looked at several of them, keeping a journal, learning to care for and train your body, mastering a traditional system of magic, mastering BDSM, create your own system, write a magical autobiography, practice self-sufficiency, learn admiration. Today, we want to talk about doing a yearly inventory. It's a perfect time to talk about this because we just came up on a new year. But every year, there's a vast conspiracy called this holiday New Year's season. It's filled with people driven by angst and guilt, buying presents for people they fear or have mistreated or neglected. Now, these same people spend the season getting drunk so they don't have to face the agony of their families or the misery of having to plan for next year. Look at them, what drives them. Ultimately find a quiet, happy place where you can see how your work of separating yourself from them is going. Separating yourself not from being around everyone, but separating yourself in a way of like sanctifying yourself. Be both brutal with this inventory and excited by the prospects of this upcoming year. Assess your overall state as of this time last year. Think back to how you were last January. Something like your Facebook timeline can often give you some clues because it keeps track of that for a lot of people that use that kind of app, and they can kind of look back at what was happening in the previous year. Are you where you want to be magically, spiritually, financially? Is your health strong? Is your love life desirable? Is your mind filled with new knowledge, your life with new skills? Have you overcome your shortcomings? Have you found your greatest weakness and begun a war against its outer manifestation? Forgive yourself your failures, rejoice in your compliments, and above all, plan on how to make the next year a better year. Bury the hatchet, but You don't need to forgive your enemies, but understand that hatred of them takes a lot of valuable force, takes a lot of energy that you could be using to focus on other things. Look over your enemies list and forgive those folks who need not have such energy directed against them, like unplugging a lot of needless appliances. You'll have a great deal more energy when the process is done. Take that same time to cull yourself, or sorry, your life of false friends, psychic vampires that are drains on your life. We often forget that these little beings have attached themselves like parasites to our chests over the years, and that they need pruning just as unnecessary hatred does. Curse your real enemies. Look over the year. If you do have people who are really and truly threatening you, threatening your family, threatening your school, uh, let that energy fly before or right around this time of New Year's. Look over the year, and if you find that certain people have been a great help in your self initiation, send them your magical blessings. Um, this is just paying back. This isn't charity; it's paying back those who have legitimately helped you. Look over your life for the path of your magical unfolding. Think about really what really has awakened you. Look for the patterns in your life. Finding those patterns is finding your true will. Learn how that will feels and resolve to let it have more of a voice in planning the next year and years to come. Write down the results of your inventory, and you may need to revise your good and your bad trait list in your diary. Next, we want to talk about discovering your roots. Just like learning admiration, self sufficiency, keeping a journal, all these different things, um, doing a yearly inventory. Next, we're at discover your roots. Your physical inheritance is sometimes perhaps your biggest and best tool for self development. You need to know yourself, your limits, and your possible skills. And that begins with knowing your body. There is a great deal of magical information encoded in your blood. We realize that one race is not superior of another race, and that policy which comes from such favoritism is a form of right hand path practice where the concept of folk comes to replace the concept of God. We realize that every human is a walking product of millions of years of human striving, and that his or her genes have been influenced by thousands of years of magical practice, whether people realize that they were practicing magic or not. And it would be sheer folly not to discover what magical treasures you may already possess because of your physical inheritance. This reflects the maxim: it is hard work to mine gold, but you get better results in a gold mine. Um, so definitely you want to um, look at your ancestors, your ancestry, and perhaps you know if you come from the deep south in America, perhaps hoodoo might be in your magical roots. So look up the systems that match where your ancestors or where your relatives have lived and where you have roots. Next, discover your location. Another great tool in deciding what kind of work to do on yourself is knowing where you are. As humans, we seldom are awake enough to know anything, and therefore we lose out on a great truth. The truth is, if you have the potential to be a god, you have all you need right in front of you. Learning to use where you are, whether you're in a small town in Kansas, the middle of Manhattan, a tree house in Africa, or part of or in, London or Paris or wherever. That is part of your initiatory job. Here are some things to do. Obtain a map of your area and systematically explore it, perhaps street by street. Use each exploration to remind yourself that you sleep through too many things. Make a list of all the possible resources you see. Use these things to amuse and both to empower you. One of the ways mankind lulls itself to sleep is by tribalism. The people that go to goth clubs might not go to pancake dinners at a nearby church. The folks that frequent the great foreign film series on campus may not shop the bargains at the railroad salvage store. You know no such barriers. All of your region is a magical labyrinth for your benefit. Remember this and practice it. Become interested in local politics. Here, more than anywhere else, you will discover the difference between what people say and what people and what they actually want. Local politics are a lab in learning the true motivations for things. You'll find greed and corruption worse than you thought humans were capable of, and you'll find nobility and strength as well. And as you learn to look for what is really going on, your political opinions will seem all over the map to your friends. This too will teach you some things about the social construct of reality. Lastly, learn about the magical lore of your region. Some places are so deeply magical that it would almost be harder not to know. Other places may take a good deal of research to discover anything, but anywhere man has been, magic has been, and its effects remain. After you gain your lore, not only can you impress your friends and guests, but you can try to make magical contact with the currents of your area. This lets you tap into what is already working on yourself and your fellow citizens, but it also lets you affect the future with your essence. I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me today for this BDSM United podcast in our Setnakt Sex Magic series. Like I said, hopefully you're beginning to see that these initiatory practices are rather difficult, rather comprehensive, rather holistic, but they look a lot like the types of mastery that you already are doing as you begin to mature and grow in BDSM. And so you're already somewhat on a magical journey, even though you may not have really realized it. You're on a spiritual journey if you're involved in BDSM, that's for sure. You can find all of our resources at www.bdsmunited.com. It was a joy speaking with you today, and I'll talk with you again soon.